Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to make this 3D abstract spiral using the free Cinema 4D Lite that comes with After Effects. Okay, so we start here in After Effects, and to launch Cinema 4D Lite we come up to File, New, Maxon Cinema 4D file, and that will ask you to save that. That will launch Cinema 4D Lite. We're going to start out by creating a spline and then wrapping some geometry around that. So if we come up to this little pen icon, click and hold and go to helix, that'll bring in our kind of helix. This is facing the wrong way at the moment. So if I just go down, make sure it's selected firstly, come down into the attributes and make this XZ, and then we just want to kind of close this top angle a little bit. If we just bring in the end radius, as you can see, that kind of brings it in and gives it a kind of swirl. Next we want to wrap some geometry around this. What we need to do is go up to our generators and bring in a sweep, and then make that helix a child of the sweep. As you can see, not a huge amount has happened there. We actually need another spline to sweep along this one. So if we come up to that pen tool again and create a circle, and then make that circle a child of the sweep as well, that will bring in some geometry, and I can just shrink that circle down either by bringing the radius here or pressing and holding T on the keyboard. It's important to note that how we stack these in the sweep actually affects what happens. So if we bring the helix first, you can see we get this odd shape. So let's switch that around. So now let's make the material. If we come down to the editor down here, double click, that will make a material. We can double click again to go into the editor, and we're actually going to turn off color and just work in reflectance for this. So just make sure this box is ticked, and we can remove this current specular reflection, and we're going to add our own reflection, which is Beckman. And then in layer color we're going to go texture and gradient, and then we're going to double click on that gradient and spiral down the kind of gradient options, say load preset, and we're going to say full color. And as you can see in our kind of preview, we get this really nice kind of rainbow effect. One more thing I want to add is some bumps to this. So we're going to choose displacement, check that box, go into texture and say noise. And as you can see, it's kind of distorting this preview here, and that's exactly what's going to happen when we add it to our shape. And let's throw this onto our shape. So at the moment we're looking at this through a kind of draft render. To see this how it'll be in our final result, we need to go to this play icon and then go to interactive render region, and now we can see what it will look like. Obviously that looks pretty weird at the moment. Because we're using just reflectance, it needs an environment to actually reflect off. So at the moment we're kind of looking at a mirror in a black room. Obviously there's nothing to reflect. So let's change that by bringing in a plane object, which if we go up to our objects up here, click plane, and now we can see that it's reflecting some of this plane. So let's go ahead and make a material for this plane object. Double click down here again to make a new one, and we can go into that material editor, this time taking off reflectance, putting luminance on and taking off color, and that's just given us a complete white material. Then we can chuck that onto our plane object, and as you can see, this is kind of illuminating our nice metallic texture. So what we really want is to have these plane objects like scattered all the way around our object, so it's kind of reflecting lots of different shapes. And obviously we don't want it to be seen by the camera either, so let's fix that. If we go up to the plane and right click, render tags, compositing, and then we can click off seen by camera, and that'll fix that problem. Next thing we want is to always have this plane kind of facing towards our object. So to do that, we're going to create a null. So going up to this little icon here, clicking once there, and then clicking on our plane, right clicking, going to animation tags and going target. This adds a little target tag here, and in that target object we can actually add our null, and now you can see our plane's been like flipped up on its side, which is really useful, and we can use these arrows to kind of just tilt this towards our shape. One thing we do want to do is just change the orientation of our plane. So instead of +y, I think we want -z there, and now we can bring that kind of out, and that's reflecting off. And then let's just copy a load of these around our object. Firstly, just to navigate around our scene, we can either use these icons up at the top right hand corner, so that's pan, zoom and orbit, or you can hold and click the 1, 2 and 3 keys. So if you hold down 1, you pan, 2 you zoom, and 3 you orbit while clicking and moving the mouse. So as I said, we want to make sure we've got a few of these surrounding our object, and the easiest way to do that is to go up to our 4-up view. So we can click this little box here, zoom out a little bit. All we need to do now is click and hold Apple or Control, and that will actually duplicate another plane. Holding Control, you'll see those two box icons. That means it's going to duplicate, and you can just click. Because we've got a target tag on there, it's always going to point towards the center, and as you can see, our kind of shape is starting to reflect more and more. There is a little slider here I should talk about, which is just a quality control. You can take that all the way up to full. Obviously it takes a little longer to render, but you see closer to the final result. And I'm going to just keep going round, just adding these in until you're kind of happy with what you see. So if you wanted to add a bit of animation to this, you would just click on the sweep, and we would animate in the heading, and we could add a bit of animation like that. So going back on our timeline to 0, clicking the heading there to add a keyframe, taking that up and clicking again to add another keyframe, and we can play that back. If we save that, jump back to After Effects, and then throw this into a composition, and to see our final result, all we need to do is change this viewport draft to current, and then you can export out of After Effects like a normal file.